Hello again. I remarked the other day that I rather expected that the person who murdered Irish teacher Aisling Murphy would turn out to be a foreigner. A Romanian has been charged with her murder. Another very strange crime also caught my attention recently and prompted me to wonder if it would turn out to have been perpetrated by somebody who was not British. This was the seemingly pointless and brutal attack on two old people in Nottinghamshire a few days ago. A woman of 86 was savagely beaten to death, and her 88-year-old husband left badly injured by the ferocious attacker. Of course, this might have been a crime carried out by a British person, but it was very bizarre and it had all the hallmarks of a mad foreigner being responsible. A Romanian called Vasil Kulia has been charged in connection with the attacks and is due to appear in court today. Some crimes have a very odd feel about them. One hesitates to use the expression un-English, but that seems to sum up what I mean, really. There have always been murders in this country, of course, just as there's been theft, rapes and every other kind of offence. But some crimes are so brutal and pointless that they really do stand out a bit. I remember a couple of years ago when a policeman asked somebody camping out to move his tent because he was trespassing, and the man responded by setting fire to the police officer by throwing petrol over him and striking a match. In all my life I had never heard of a crime like that. I'd never heard of a policeman being set on fire, and I guessed that there was something a little unusual about the attacker. The man convicted turned out to be a Bulgarian called Blagojevst Hagiagogiev. Even quiet little corners of England, like the Isle of Wight, are not immune from this sort of thing. The thumbnail to this video shows an Iraqi called Kazam Said. What he was doing on the Isle of Wight, I have no idea. But he attacked and kidnapped several very old people, people in their 80s, and threatened them with knives to get hold of their money. Thoroughly unpleasant individual. I give a link in the description to this video to the news story about Said. It does seem to me that a disproportionate number of the more savage and grotesque crimes that we see now in Britain are committed either by foreign immigrants or those who are the offspring of immigrants. I will hazard a guess and say that if you come from a country which has been gripped by war for decades and you grow up in such conditions from childhood, then perhaps this would have the effect of skewing your perceptions of what constitutes proper and acceptable behaviour. In other words, you might conduct yourself in a way more appropriate to a war-torn third world nation rather than a European country should you find yourself in a civilised place like the Isle of Wight. I do see that. The question is, though, why we should want such people in our country in the first place. I've no doubt that many viewers have made similar observations to themselves and notice that some offences are most likely to have been carried out by people whose traditions are not those of Britain. And I have an idea that many who have noticed this will have asked themselves, why are those people in Britain in the first place? We're constantly assured that this country's immigration system is being reformed, but there's no sign of this happening. After we left Europe, 3.5 million foreigners were granted the right to stay here and become British citizens. Most of them were from Eastern Europe, Romania, Bulgaria and so on. The end to freedom of movement which we were promised as well when we left Europe doesn't seem to have materialised. I spoke yesterday about the Conservative Party's manifesto at the last election, and it had quite a bit to say about immigration and how tough Britain would be on it if the Tories won the 2019 election. Since then, the number of foreigners entering the country and being given the right to stay here has gone up dramatically, And of course, among those people are some whose idea of a good day's work is setting policemen on fire or beating old age pensioners to death. My own feeling is that we have more than enough homegrown criminals and psychopaths of our own, and we hardly need to import them from Iraq and Romania.